My name is Anna Królica and I'm very happy to be here and host this meeting. My guest is Marlena Wolfe, involved in a Dutch dance company, Introdans, but also a dance teacher, a rehearsal director. And coming back to the first questions, is this your first visit to Poland?
Well, first of all, I'm very happy to be here in Poland, but also here at the Lublin Dance Festival. I'm very honored to also be interviewed by you and to represent Introdans. But it is my first time here in Poland for sure. I've never been, and so far I've been here for 3 days almost, and I've really enjoyed my time here so far. And the food is very good.
It's good to hear that. Yeah. Yeah, and during the festival you will conduct the master classes.
Yes.
And I'm very curious, what skills can the participants develop during these workshops, and who can be a participant in general in these workshops?
It's a good question. I mean, I've been a teacher for many years. I was teaching before I was a ballet master. I find it a very unique position to be in. No matter who is in the room, I believe that I'm a teacher who adapts to that moment. So for me, anyone can take the classes. If it was a non-dancer or a dancer or just a person very curious, I think most teachers can adapt their classes to make sure that all will leave with skills, new skills, or having had a nice experience. Speaking of these workshops, I have geared it towards the program that we just performed here in Lublin. So I will focus on 2 of the ballets from the program that I worked very closely with. It's still contemporary, modern, so it will have that style, if you will, to speaking in dance terminology. But of course with my own spin in terms of how it builds up with like the warming up and the more preparatory elements. And also just to give like a flavor of performance and artistic expression by the end, feeling that they have enough material to really do to sort of get inside of what it is to be a dancer, maybe at Introdans, and to have an experience that we have every day when we're at work.
Okay. And how did it come about that you wanted to work at Introdans?
I first was at Introdans as a guest repetitor. I went in 2008 to the company to set a ballet called Takademi by choreographer Robertem Battle'm. He's an American choreographer. He was also the artistic director of Avenue American Dance Theater. So, not at that time though, but in 2008 was my first introduction to Introdans, to set that ballet, and then I came every year, every 2 years to set another ballet of his on the company. By the invitation of Roel Warntold, the artistic director. And then it just so happened that in 2000, I believe, 13, I set a ballet called No Longer Silent. And I met my husband in the Netherlands, which is the reason why I moved in the Netherlands in the first place. But I was very fortunate that in that same year, the director at that time, the business director, Ton Viggers, had a vacancy for the balletmeester position, the repetitor position, and he asked me to come work for the company. So I've been there now for 10 seasons.
Wow, it sounds really great. Yeah, but also I read very interesting information about your previous life, let's say, in America.
Yeah.
When you dance as a dancer, and also a teacher, assistant professor at the university. Maybe it's also good to give more information about that for the audience, for the people.
Yeah, I think when you're first starting out to be a dancer, you of course are very focused on being a performer and being an artist. However, I was always interested in 2 trajectories, the other trajectory being teaching, and then eventually as I was a dancer and I saw how companies worked and became to know this position of what it is to be a ballet master, that became the dream, let's say, post-dancing retirement plan, but not really retiring because wanting to stay in the arts very much, especially in dance, to pass on my knowledge and information and the knowledge that I acquired throughout my study, but also when I was working professionally in New York. I worked in New York for 10 years and I was a dancer. I worked for Robertem Battle'm, Camille Brown, and other artists there who had their own companies. And assisted both of, actually the two I first named very closely, was also repetiteur for them while I was simultaneously dancing. So developing skills for myself in both areas of my professional career. And just gained a lot of experience as much as I could from a city that offers you so much opportunity. I just didn't want to take advantage of only one bite of what was there, but as much as I could get from the possibilities. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you have in your memory some special project which was very important for you in that time?
Yes, I worked with the choreographer Camille A. Brown, and she made a production called Mr. Tall E. Rance. It was a very special production for me to be a part of. She had a company that did a lot of work that would create conversation, and you could say that all art does so, but I find that her approach to her work was very much to make sure that she communicated what was very important to her in terms of African American culture. And seeing as I'm not African American, I found that a unique experience actually, because it's not my culture per se, but it's something I was of course very passionate about having, yeah. I don't know if I should explain all of that, you'd be here for too long, why I'm passionate about it, but to figure out how to tell that story without it being my own story was quite a journey, and one that I think I learned a lot from. I'm not sure if I was successful, she would probably say I was. I believe that in my gut I was, but it definitely took a while to find out how I could make those bridges and connections to tell a story that might not be my own and not be an imposter in that situation. So it was definitely a growing experience.
Okay, I don't know why, but I thought that maybe you mentioned the collaboration with Twyla Tarp, and this project is also very important.
I mean, working for researcher and dancer, of course. I mean, there's so many experiences, but also Twyla, I had a brief moment working for her just in terms of being a vessel for her and one of her assistants at that time, Jason McDowell, who's was a very popular dancer at that time for many modern dance companies. He worked with a lot of the people that we would say we would admire as modern contemporary choreographers in America. And we worked together to codify one of her ballets that she was bringing back from the archives so that it can be set further on dancers after that specific period of time that was working on it. Myself and my colleagues at Marymount Manhattan College, that's where it started. But we were sort of let's say, the egg that was producing this archive of work to be then passed on to people who also wanted to do the work later on.
Yeah, and maybe you can explain or say something more about the idea, the body as archive, like how we can understand these things and how we can use from the narration, past narration of a dance.
Well, it's interesting. When I first started working with choreographers to notate work, of course there's laban and different techniques that you can notate dance that are very official, and you have to study and have a degree to use the technique and such. But I never trained or studied in a sort of codifying technique. So I think as I grew to work with these people, you develop your own methods. Luckily, technology advances quite a lot, so you can use video. Video is such a huge, obviously, tool to record what it is you do in the studio during a creation, or you look back at videos that are from maybe a long time ago. Quality-wise, they're not as good, but you can still see the idea in which that is in the choreography, the physical ideas, the musicality, and hope that you can, with your sharp eyes, reproduce that step by step. Play, pause, rewind again, play, pause. I find that we work a lot in video to this day, and even more so we're relying on it. If I think about my work at Introdans over the last 10 seasons, when people come to set work, They're using archival material that is mostly video, but also maybe handwritten notes and different things. And I think that any methods in which people try to record as much as possible the knowledge about a ballet, both what is physical and the ideas behind it, what a choreographer thought of and originally to even make that work, and why they made it, and why they chose those dancers and those specific types of bodies or whatever it might be. The more information you have, the better you can recreate it or restage it, as we say, and have the best potential possibility to do it at its best on stage in a performance aspect. And I think archiving is something that's very important for my work as a ballet master at Introdans. When I'm doing any ballets, I feel responsible to record what it is I do with the dancers at that time, so that if it is to come back in our repertoire 2 years later, 10 years later, that we can do it the most accurate way possible.
Yeah, but what is the the specification of the work as a rehearsal director or ballet director? Is that correct understanding?
Yeah.
What is the specific of, what is the core of this kind of work?
The core of the work is to, I mean, if I again come to my work at Introdans, the day in and day out work is working with the dancers. They train in their ballet class to prepare for the day, and the next person that they see after that teacher is the ballet master. It's either myself or 2 of my colleagues who work with them on the repertoire. So whatever we're doing at that moment for the current tour, or what we're preparing for a gala or a special event. And so we are responsible for the planning and what time we think that we need to accomplish the rehearsing part of the job, which is getting them most prepared to perform. And I would say it's like a coach. If people aren't familiar with dance, it would be like a coach of a basketball team. You are responsible for the output of the performers and making sure they get the best out of themselves, and we get the best out of the company.
Yeah, but what exactly do you do at the Introdans? Because if I read, have good information, you have many functions there. You also sometimes design the costume. And
that is funny. I only design costumes as a guest repetiteur, not for the company. That is again for the work I did with Robert. But I was never a costume designer in the company, for sure not. But other functions, I mean, I work very closely with the artistic director in the development of the dancers, and really focused on also not just developing them in the studio as artists, but also developing them as employees for themselves and in the business, so that they are continuing to grow in all aspects of themselves. So that's a huge part of what I'm doing now. And I teach, of course, and that I find is a different hat than when you're a ballet master. You approach the room differently. So I'm a teacher, ballet master, and I work administratively with the artistic director.
Okay, as a very popular, respected dance teacher around the world, maybe you can give some advices for the dancer, how they can protect their body during the training, or just take care about the body, because this is a very important tool for all dancers over the world.
Yeah, of course. I have really grown to appreciate Introdans and the Netherlands, where we're based. Having come from America, I will say that in the company there is such a well-rounded approach to the dancer and the dancer's well-being and health, to make sure they can maintain their instrument, especially the before and after parts of the job, because when they're in the studio, and that's where, as dancers, we say we're, for the most part, in the studio. It's rare that we're on stage. So, of course, that part we're trained in daily as young people when we're training in school. That's where we are present the most. That's where we have our teachers, and that's where we are the most probably well prepared. Sometimes the before and after, how to prepare for our classes and prepare for our rehearsals, we're maybe a little bit having less guidance. Now that's not totally true, because of course teachers give advices and they do their best that they can when they're not present to make sure dancers know what to do for themselves. but that's not always the case, that people can still, with that knowledge, be able to apply it. And I think that at least at Introdans you feel that there is more guidance, there's more resources available to dancers to, like for example, physio or a mental health coach or a life coach. These kinds of coaches are really important, not just for the physical health of dancers, but the mental health of dancers. And I do believe that those resources are at least provided and are accessible so that they can prepare their mind and body before entering that studio process, where we're more familiar with what to do and how to take care of ourselves. And then the after also being rest and recovery. We have we have rules and regulations that help provide for rest time, and just the idea of having rest, of course, for a dancer, I had a nice conversation with some of them about this, especially those that are maybe towards the end of their careers, that as dancers, it's a day in, day out, every minute job. It's not that in the studio, that's when we turn it on, and then when we leave, we turn it off. It's every minute of every day, because we're walking around with our instrument all the time. So you're constantly thinking about what you eat. Can I stay out that late because the next day I have this class, or I know I have this performance and I need to prepare still X, Y, and Z for myself to feel less stressed and make sure I'm the most prepared to do my best work. So I guess you could say that about any job in the world, that everybody wants to do their jobs the best, and so maybe they never rest. But I find particularly for the dancer, because the body's the instrument, because it's so emotionally connected to what we do and what we want to say with our art, that it is a minute by minute every day that you're committed to it process. So to take care of yourself is very important, because sometimes those windows are very small, and so take advantage of that small opportunity each time it comes to make sure you can sustain a career. Yeah, and I think that in the Netherlands, at least in an Introdans, if I compared it to America, it feels a little bit more, the rules and regulations and everything there is a really good start to a healthy approach. And I'm not going to say in America it's not, it is, it just is a more individual approach. So you have to definitely, you have to seek out more than others offering to you possibility. Mm-hmm. And that's not bad, it's just a different way. So.
Yeah. And what kind of repertoire does the Introdans promote and you teach there?
Oh, sorry, one more time?
What kind of repertoire, like what kind of the techniques and...
Well, I mean, we're a contemporary company, contemporary ballet company, but we start, to give you an idea, we start with a ballet class every morning. So we believe a strong classical foundation is necessary for the type of rep that we do. However, we do works from Hans Vermanen to Jirí Kylián to Sidi Larbi Cherkaoui to Akram Khan. So the spectrum of the styles of dances.
The most important choreographers.
Sorry, yeah. These are the recent ones. So I feel very grateful for sure to be in a company that gets to work with so many wonderful choreographers in the world. So that's for sure, and the dancers as well. But yeah, it's such a large spectrum of work, and to prepare the bodies is, it's not going to just require the ballet class at the beginning of the day, of course. Now, if you look at any dance company, you have a wide range of dancers from many different ages and levels of experience. And so to make sure that we can all approach a process healthy is a very active process for the repetitor to, if I have a 19-year-old who's fresh to the company, wants to prove themselves, maybe is a little less experienced in Sidi Larbi's work than somebody who's been in the company for 15 years, then yeah, that person's going to need a little bit more one-on-one time with another dancer or myself to work on materials so that they are safe with their bodies when doing, for example, he has really amazing floor work and very physical, I don't want to say gymnastics, sorry Larbi, but very, very physical work that requires sometimes knee pads and all these things. You want to make sure that, first of all, that those dancers have those tools, those knee pads, and you also want to make sure then you're working with the dancer how to do those elements if they've never done them before. And so that takes time. So you always figure out where to make time. That's always what we do as ballet masters. Sometimes you're given an hour, and we can make out of an hour probably 3 hours worth of work happen. And that's the at least the magic we try to do, is try to get the most out of any time that we have dancers in space, so they get the most out of their time with us, and that we can get further in the work faster. In a repertoire company, you can imagine we do a lot of work. In 1 year, we could produce up to, let's say, 12 to 15 ballets. And so you need to make sure then, you can manage it all and keep it at a very high quality level.
Yeah, and what kind of dancer do you meet in the company, and how often do you organize the audition?
That's a good question. I mean, yearly, more or less, we have auditions. I say more or less because sometimes the vacancies in the company, there aren't any, like in terms of dancers who might be, contracts that might be available. But sometimes that's done internally, sometimes that's done more publicly. There's different reasons for why we handle them differently. But yeah, I think we look for dancers who not just don't have just technique, but of course I think a lot of people probably say the same thing. There's a vision, and that vision comes from the artistic director, Robertem Battle'm, and of course our zakelijk director, Marika. So he's in the auditions alongside the ballet staff, excuse me, and we see the possibilities of a personality, of a character, of that person, how they use their voice, which is their dancing, and if we feel that spark that connects with what we are as Introdans, and I think that's very important. It's, when you choose a dancer, I think you choose not only a dancer, but you choose the person, and you want to make sure, that you feel that for both sides it's a match, right? And I think that that's very an artistic approach as much as a physical approach to a selection of a person. Dancers always ask, how do I do that? I think, for each person, if you were to give help or critique or any advices, it's very, again, individual, because some people can audition, let's say, well, and what does that mean to audition well? I think a lot of the times it's relaxation and just being confident, and that no matter what skills you have and no matter what skills you still need to improve, that you're vulnerable enough to show both. That you don't want to just show the best parts of yourself, but you're also showing what you're willing to work on. And sometimes maybe I think dancers who do better in auditions are more vulnerable to show maybe what they still need to learn. And that's hard to show because you want to show the best. That's of course the idea, yeah.
Yeah, okay, and how does a day in this kind of company looks like for you, or for perspective for a dancer?
Well, on a regular week at Introdans, we work Monday through Friday for rehearsals. Let's be specific. The dancers start their day usually at 10 with ballet class. They have an hour and 15-minute class, and then they have rehearsals from 11:30 to 5. Sometimes 11:30 to 8, because we will sometimes have evening rehearsals to catch up on material that we feel that we need to get done in a certain time frame. We try not to do evenings too much because, of course, the dancers still have each season 3 full tours in the Netherlands of 30+ performances. So we have one program to start our season, a winter program that is our family performance usually, family production, and then we have a third program in the springtime, and then still another smaller program which we call our end of season program. So with all those programs combined, you can look at a dancer's week being Monday through Friday, 10 to 5, possibly 10 to 8, with 2 or 3 performances a week. So that's quite a lot. So that's why we limit those evening rehearsals. For me, my day looks differently. I don't take the classes anymore, and I don't teach the ballet classes myself, so I'm just doing the rehearsals in terms of the work with the dancers. to prepare for my rehearsals, it's a lot of the time behind a computer, watching video, looking at castings, planning for emergencies. When I know certain dancers might have, like all of a sudden if one dancer gets an injury, that can create another 10 hours of work for me to study certain places to make sure I can catch up the next person who's coming into that spot. Sometimes less, depending on the ballet that we're doing at that time, and if I've done it a lot or I've done it not enough to really know it well, or as well as I'd like to. I tour with the dancers just as much as they tour, but of course I share my position with 2 other colleagues, so we don't do all the performances, which is good because I have also administrative responsibilities. Yeah, and so that's how it works, kind of in a short version.
Yes, thank you. And what are your plans for the future?
Plans
Do
for
you
the
want to stay
future?
in Netherlands?
That is a very loaded question, I guess. No, my plans are to stay so far. Yeah, I love Introdans. It's a beautiful company. I admire and I feel very honored to work with Roel. I think he's quite a visionary for the dance world itself at large, and also just what he's done for Introdans. I have a deep respect and I've been very excited to help Apple in my own way to help the company make steps towards continuing to progress and develop. So yeah, I see that as my home. My colleagues are wonderful, working with the dancers. They are such a unique group that, I mean, I will say that the one trait that always comes back when people come to work with the dancers is that they're so fast. They find it incredible that they can learn so quickly, and they're so open to information and absorbing that enough to already spit it back out and produce what it is maybe the choreographer's looking for, or the assistant to the choreographer, or whatever. So that makes me feel very blessed to work with such a talented group of people. So yeah, I don't see why I would ever leave. Plus my family is there. Yeah,
just
yeah. That's a great question. It's something to think about. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, and coming to the end of our meeting, I would like just asking about your impression. Will you leave Lublin with? What kind of impression?
That's a good question too.
Because still it's some days before.
Yeah, I feel like we're going to have to do it. I would love to answer this question after the workshops, because I think I'll have a great time in the workshops too. So to feel like I'm really giving the full weight behind the answer. But anyway, I can have my imagination fill that in. I'm leaving with a very warm feeling, actually. I just got off the phone with somebody else. I was walking to the interview, and I just really have enjoyed being here. Everybody's very warm and welcoming and curious and asking really interesting questions that make me also think, just like in this interview. Of course, you would say in our jobs as artists, we're always asking questions and we're always curious, but sometimes when you just put into a different space, a different country with other people that you've never met before, and they ask you maybe the same questions as someone else, but in your same environment, it's just a different feeling. And it's just nice to share, actually, that and feel that is such a universal concept. And so, yeah, I've really, with the festival itself, I hope everybody enjoyed the performance, but I know the dancers for sure enjoyed performing for the audience, and we're feeling the energy and the lost my train of thought there, but just the exchange that you have with the audience anytime you get to have one is special. And here in Lublin, it was really, really beautiful. Yeah. Okay, thank you for meeting me and for interview and sharing so many information and knowledge about your work and the company Introdans. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.